All right, let's call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Showalter,
Here.
Myers, Howard,
Here.
Redlin,
Here.
Thompson.
Here. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening to everybody. Who do we have signed up for public comment tonight? Anybody signed up? We have, I guess, Craig is on the agenda under public comment, so I guess if you want to go ahead and take the podium.
First comment, if you could correct the spelling on my name, it's Less, Lace. Just a petty little thing.
Hey, that's a fair enough thing to complain about. It will be noted. Thank you.
So, board meeting last week was focused mostly on budget. So we can jump right in there. We did have a couple of action items, just some informational things. First and foremost is voted on our meeting schedules for next year, so make sure we're going to keep those on the Wednesday. But one thing they did add is we're going to go back to having a quarterly finance committee, which will be at 5. Then the board meeting will be at 5:45 on those nights. Rest time will be at 5 o'clock, like it's been. And that'll be the fourth Wednesday of each month. We also did renew the contract with our emergency room providers, with the SLY is the name of the company, and they've done a great job for us, so we were happy to extend that contract, and actually we put it into some renewals for, we can't contract for more than a year with the board structure, but we've got some automatic renewals built in for 3 one-year terms following, so we'll have the SLY around for a little while, and that I think that's really good for our community. The other thing that we talked about at the board meeting is we've talked in here before about the economy and where inflation's going, and government federal year ended September 30th right at about 8.5, 8.7%, which number you look at, but pretty close there, inflation. And so we've looked at that with the need to look at our employees and give them a cost of living increase. So we have acknowledged that, and we'll do it a little bit earlier than January 1. We give a little bit of a Christmas bump. So we've given our employees 3%, which is not a lot, but then when you look up at the whole budget, which I'm going to get to in a minute, we will look at a 3% merit increase and a potential another adjustment in July of another potential cost of living of 3%. So if you put the 3 of those together, that does work out to 9%, which is just a little bit ahead of what inflation's been. So
Yeah, it's great.
trying to keep up with that and make sure our employees are taken care of. On the numbers for October, we had for the month $3.2 million of revenue. That brings us year to date at $31.4 million. 12-month budget is $40 million. So we're going to be probably a little behind the actual total budget for revenue for the year. Then we have our contractual adjustments, and those have actually been a little higher this year. And just a quick thing on government finance, because that's the way we get paid. We get reimbursed for our Medicare approved expenses at 101%, and then with sequestration they take 2% back, so we get 99%. We've been through that number before. So, but based on that, we develop what you either call a receivable or a payable, whether we owe them money, whether they've overpaid us or underpaid us. They have, in fact, underpaid us, so we right now are getting a receivable or getting a pretty big jump. That's taken our contractual adjustments down quite a bit. So that, when we get to the bottom line of total income before expenses of $2.2 million for the month, $18 million for the year, and projected budget of $21.5, which we should hit pretty close for this year for the actual after all the adjustments. Expenses, our biggest number again is payroll and benefits, and so that's running about $1 million for this for the month, just over $1 million. Year to date, about 8.3, and we've got a budget for the year of 10.8. we'll be a little bit under that for the year, mostly because of open positions that we still have. So our total operating expenses about $2 million running for the month, and then for the year that runs us at about 16.7, and gives us a total operating income then for the month of $59,000 against a budget actually of -21, so we're running a little bit ahead. And then for the year-to-date, 466.99, so 467,000 versus a budget of a -200. So we're actually outperforming budget. We didn't expect this year to be able to hold, and we've done all right. The revenue has stayed down, but we've managed expenses pretty well. Then that receivable didn't hurt to have from Medicare. Then after that, we have 340B revenue and tax appropriations, giving us a total net income for the month of $167,000, and year-to-date, $1.9 million, again on a budget of 2.1 projected. We're going to be pretty close to that. So we have kept cash, our days cash on hand, pretty constant. We're at 256 days cash. And we're running an average daily expense of just over about $55,500, so right in that range, $55,000 to $56,000. Our daily census has stayed pretty close, about 3.58 for the month, 3.83 year to date, so almost 4 patients a day average. In the ER, our visits were 7.19 for the month, and 7 is the annual average. So that's our total visits year to date is just over 2,000, 2,124. So don't necessarily like to see an ER be overly busy, but we like to know that we can have it there to take care of things. So it's doing well. And one of the things that we've seen is the number of admits versus transfers has actually increased this year. So we're keeping more of our patients home and transferring less of them out of the community. So that's one of the benefits of that group that we've got. They're doing a great job that way. In the clinic, we have had visits for the month of 1,186. We're on track to do between 14,000 and 15,000 visits for annual for the year. So that's pretty good. Specialty visits were 245 for the month. So that's not considered in our clinic. Those are the ones that are actually coming through the specialty docs. So got a pretty good number there. Now, for the budget. For next year, we are projecting a patient revenue budget of $39.4 million. And then we have those contractual adjustments we talked about, and they're running pretty close to 50%. So we'll have an income before expenses, but after adjustments of $21.1 million. It's our net revenue number that we expect to hit next year. It's 21.1. Salaries and benefits, we're looking to be about 7.8 for the salary, 2 million for benefits, for a total there of about 10 million for the year 23. Contract labor, we still a big expense. We're projecting close to $800,000 next year of contract labor. If we can hire people, we would love to spend that $800,000 on our own employees and not on somebody that's just going to be here for a few weeks and then off again. So that's a big number we got to really work on.
So that's for majority of positions that you would prefer to have full-time in-house
Correct.
positions.
So like
but
right
you're-
now, I've got a couple of nurses position open, I've got a lab tech position open, I've got a rad tech position open, and if we can't fill those, in fact, I've got a traveler right now in radiology that's just here on a 13-week, contract. They come for 3 months, and we pay them premium dollar to come. I just as soon have that money to pay my local team. In fact, I've offered my team, I'll pay you overtime, I'll do extra money, I'll do everything, but they can still only work so many hours. We can't burn them out. We're already facing that issue of working our staff pretty hard, so we don't want to burden them. But if we could hire new people, we are, I guess that's not really part of my presentation. I've been just so you're aware, with the college expansion in their healthcare fields, they're adding a lab tech program. I think this next year we're supposed to get that going. So, and we're working with them to provide the clinicals and whatnot so that we can actually start growing our own a little better here. So kudos to the college, to Ben and his team. They're doing a great job of trying to build our community too.
Yeah, that sounds great.
What do I get to? Total expenses, I said 21 million for the year. That brings us down to a total, let me see, yeah. Lost my spot here. Total operating income, there we go. Total operating income of about 149,000, and then we have our non-operating income of 340B, of tax appropriations and whatnot. Brings us up to a total income for the year about 1.9 million that we're projecting for next year. One of the numbers that we measure by is EBITDA, the earnings before our interest and our taxes and our depreciation and our amortization and all that other stuff. If we can keep that around 13%, that's a pretty good target to maintain. And this budget would get us right in at 12.8, so just shy of the 13% number. That's kind of the target that we always have, trying to keep our EBITDA close to that. So one expense item that the board added in our meeting, as we've talked about it, and you raised the question last month when I was here, what are we doing about a building? So we have budgeted a number to get started. It's not a big number, but it's at least a number to start looking at site plan development options and see the feasibility of really what we can do, and not just from an economic standpoint, but from a community need standpoint, and how we can meet those needs. So that is in the budget for this year to start taking a good look at that. On our, where do we spend the money we make? Capital reinvestment. So for this next year, we've got projected $1 million worth of capital expenditure. So you can see that's pretty much in line with whatever we make, we put back in to the hospital. So just a couple of things to focus on here. We've got a new Lucas CPR device. This is not a big number, but it's $21,000 that we'll be purchasing pretty quickly here, first of the year. And that basically, in the case of a code, when someone's coming in with a heart attack, this is a machine that'll take over the pulmonary, frees up a body, frees up a nurse or tech or somebody to be able to be working on other things. So we think that's kind of important for our community to have that Lucas device, that CPR device. That's pretty important. And then we'll be doing some other things for, some of these prices just blow me away, like a procedure room chair. You think, well, how much could that be? $10,000 for a chair. So, but it has ups and downs, and it does different things, but it's still healthcare. You just add a zero. That's what I've always, or a 2. Anyway, total things there. Again, we're looking at about $1 million. We've got a couple things in our eye area for the specialists that come in. Some, a new Olympus monitor and some electro, and then in the surgery area, electrocautery to help with some of the sealing up of wounds. So that's pretty much it for the budget, and be happy to entertain any questions or any you may have.
Anybody have any questions?
No, sir.
No?
You guys are
I'm just
easy
kidding.
crowd.
Oh, well, I might have a question.
Okay, go ahead. I'm ready.
So, the phone system has been an issue for a while
Phone system
now.
has been a nightmare.
Do we have any kind of a projected outlook
Yes.
as to when that's going to get resolved?
So you must know somebody on the board.
Full disclosure, yes. My wife is on the board.
So we've actually been working, put a team of people together to work with our vendor to really get this fixed, and they had, this is kind of sad news, we had it all ready to roll out about a week ago, and literally our system has an auto reboot that it does every Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. Anyway, it does this, or early, Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. We had the machine with all that programming on it turned off. Somehow the system went in, turned the machine back on, and erased our entire download. So we get to redo that work. all the legwork is done, that's all still there, but the actual programming is, so it'll probably take us another, probably late this week, probably early next week, we'll be able to roll out that new formatting. That should help us remove the bottlenecking and what we just, I don't know, I could spend all night on the phone. But basically, you've got everything channeled into one or two numbers, and then when it comes back, if I call somebody and leave a message, or they see on their phone the number called, it's a single number. It doesn't tell them if it was the emergency room that called, if it was the floor that called, if it was the lab, the radiology. They just have a number, the hospital. So when they call back in, they say, I got a phone call from this number, and our people in there have no idea where to send that call or how to even follow up. They don't know who called. So that's one of the things that's going to be addressed, is
Good.
that bottlenecking, so we can actually have some direct units. So if radiology calls you, it'll say radiology, and so we can be able to track it down. We hope that'll relieve some of that bottleneck. A big volume of our calls is people literally redialing. They'll call in, not get through because of that bottleneck, hang up, call back. Sometimes we'll get 4 or 5 calls from the same person just trying to get through. That's not efficient. That's not good customer service. We know that. We got to fix that. So that's what this new program should do, is direct some of those calls so that we can get people where they need to be when they make their phone call. That was a good question.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Thank you.
Well, the answer is not what it should have been. We had this fixed 6 months ago, don't you know?
Yeah.
We're working on it.
All right.
Anything else?
Craig, you mentioned that you had in the budget for next year, a new hospital or a new building, or what all does that include? What are you budgeting for there? What do you?
Okay, so, I'll tell you the number. It's about $75,000, so it's not a lot. But basically, before we can go anywhere, we have to do what we talk about as a feasibility study, which is a little more than just saying, can you afford it? I mean, we'll do that. We'll have our financial models that we'll crank in there. But what it does, it looks at the site, it looks at needs of the community. It takes our statistics, not just our statistics of what we've actually done, but there's a insurance company has a great system out there. I wish we had access to it, where they can track by zip code every procedure that's done and where you're getting it done. So it not only tells us that, say, there was 100 surgeries done in your hospital, it'll tell you, but from your county, there was 200 done. 100 of them were done there, and 100 were done somewhere else. And so we can take those numbers and then kind of plug those in to say, what opportunities do we have to meet our community needs? So it's that type of putting that all that number together. And there are, believe it or not, there are companies that you can pay to do that for you, that have a little more expertise than what I bring to the table personally. So does that answer your question? But that's kind of what it is. It's
Okay.
site plan, feasibility, the whole thing.
Is that going to be something that you're going to release to the general public when that's
Oh,
completed?
the
or-
general public's gonna have to be fully involved in this. We can't do this well, one, we don't want to. We want to be fully transparent, but it just wouldn't be feasible to try to do it without that full disclosure, without the engagement, because it's our community's hospital. It's not Craig's hospital. It's our community's hospital, so.
What's your timeline on that?
In all honesty, if we were to pull the trigger today and say, let's go, we would probably spend the next year or so getting financing arranged. We'd probably be a year and a half to 2 years before we have shovels in the ground.
I mean, just on the feasibility study. What's your
All the
timeline
feasibility
on
side,
that?
we can probably do that within the first half of the year.
Okay.
Probably have that done. So,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah. You're getting the same questions my board's asking me. How fast are you gonna do this, and are we gonna quit talking about it and start doing something? So, yeah. Yeah.
Anything else?
All right.
All right, thank you, Craig.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. We have A, the 11/21 commission meeting minutes, and B, the appropriation ordinances 2022-23, 2022-23A, and 2022-P23. Anybody have any questions or comments, concerns on any of those?
I move that we approve the consent agenda items A and B.
I have a motion by Commissioner Redlin,
I'll second.
a second by Commissioner Howard. Any other further discussion? Roll, please.
Howard,
Yes.
Redlin,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Myers, Thompson.
Yes. Okay, let's move on to ordinances and resolutions. We have Resolution 1608 regarding an unfit structure at 1523 Colorado. Looks like Kent, maybe you're gonna lead this one.
This is just a redo, basically. On a previous resolution back in August, the commission approved a hearing on the property for November 21st. We actually had given a little bit of extra time. And that seemed to throw the timing off for staff because we didn't include it on the agenda for November 21st. So this is a resolution to set the hearing for January 17th. There's really been no material changes on the property since then. So this is just resetting the date for the hearing on the property.
Well, that's too bad to hear. I felt like at the time that maybe there was gonna be some improvements and some stuff happening, but
It's been moved one side of the property to the other, but as far as the total volume of items, no.
anybody else have any questions or comments?
I'll move that we approve resolution 1608.
Have a motion by Commissioner Howard,
Second that motion.
a second by Commissioner Showalter. Any other discussion? Roll, please.
Showalter,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Redlin,
Yes.
Myers, Thompson.
Yes. Okay, let's move on to formal actions, starting with the Animal Control Operation Agreement. Kent?
This has been in discussion for a little while. And we did have discussion at the joint meeting to renew the agreement as far as the animal control operations. During the discussion, and I might ask City Attorney Jay Kling to brief us on that as well, but during discussion it was decided instead of having a three-part agreement, which does get additional complications involved. Previously it was an agreement that involved Sherman County, City of Goodland, and the vendor. And it was decided after discussion amongst both city and county staff members and the county attorney to go ahead and have separate bilateral agreements. So that's the one change, but I guess I asked City Attorney Kling to provide any additional information regarding that.
Good evening, guys.
Good evening.
So basically, the way that it broke down is I'm not quite sure why we started in, why there was even a joint agreement for this purpose, or for this particular purpose anyway. Don't have the history behind that or anything like that. But ultimately, the actual breakdown of how it even worked is the city would actually bill the entire amount and then be reimbursed from the county. Seemed a little bit inefficient from our end of it, because more or less we were also playing as the middleman. But really what it breaks down to is who's really the one receiving the services, and really our contribution and what we receive as far as the services from Pawash, Kathy Schimmerhorn, all those, everything there. Really that should just be our decision. If we're happy with our services and we feel like raises are, necessary or appropriate, we shouldn't have to also include the county or ask the county for permission. Part of the problematic thing that kind of came to my attention after we were going through the negotiations was this was a percentage base as opposed to, what's the amount of the number. I know that really is what it came up to, right? The whole discussion was, well, this is what we have budgeted, but we also say that we're going to contribute 70% of this or whatever. What that does, I believe in our realm, it gives us the freedom to work with Ms. Schimmerhorn directly and not necessarily have to clue in the county or have any input there. Not that it's not warranted, but at the same time, what she does for us really is totally separate and apart from what she does for the county. And it may come to a time where she doesn't want to do stuff for the county anymore, or she doesn't want to do anything for the city anymore, and that shouldn't be handcuffed together with her same duties to the county and vice versa. So that's why in my discussions with the county attorney, we felt that it really was pretty unnecessary to have a joint agreement. I mean, all the other stuff on the back end of that again, I won't bore you guys with, but all the stuff that we have to do when you have a joint meeting or have a joint agreement, it was way, way more than what was warranted for what this really is, and it really wasn't a necessary joint agreement, so that's why we did that.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jay. It does seem to be a lot cleaner this way than the way it was before. Like I said, it shouldn't have to be a 6-month conversation to try to get this all taken care of because of the way it was done before. So I agree that this is the better way to do it for sure.
The actual amount that's stated in the agreement is the correct amount. That the form had a little bit different amount, but that was, the city clerk corrected it as far as the amount within the agreement. So don't
Yeah.
pay attention to the actual agreement itself. It says $25,200 per year for this part of the operations, which it breaks down into monthly installments of $2,100. So
And that 25,200 is based on what we had budgeted off of
yeah,
for this last year's budget.
yeah.
Anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding this agreement? I will make a motion to approve the animal control agreement with, I'm not sure how she's got it, with Paw Wash Limited for the annual amount of $25,200.
I'll second.
I have a second by Commissioner Redlin. Any other further discussion? Roll, please.
Redlin,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Myers, Thompson.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to the 2023 cereal malt beverage licenses. Ken?
In your packet is a list of licenses and the current status of all those different licenses. Obviously, we have a number of business entities in town that get their cereal malt beverage license in order to either have consumption on the premises or for containers not for consumption on the premise. And it has a list thereof, and I haven't had any updates to the list. Notice that the one on consumption on the premise, Mom's Kitchen, has passed inspections and background. The Pizza Hut is pending inspection approval. And as far as not for consumption on the premise, the Corner Market and Casey's have passed everything. The other four are 24/7, Walmart and Dollar General and the Travel Center are pending inspection approval. In your motion, I would just recommend that you state that as long as they finish the inspection process to the satisfaction.
Contingent
the
upon the
authorities.
approval of the inspections.
There you go,
one might
one of
say.
those type of phrases, yes.
Is the travel center the KOA?
No, there's not been submitted yet.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Then, and who was the other one? Neither one of those have submitted their application.
Okay.
And those will be, since they haven't submitted their application, would be at a future meeting. They're just not considered at this time.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions on any of those?
Well, I would move that we approve CMB licenses for Pizza Hut, Mom's Kitchen, Corner Market, Casey's General Store, 24/7, Walmart, Dollar General, and Travel Center pending inspection and approval of the license.
All right, and I have a motion by Commissioner Showalter.
I'll second.
I have a second by Commissioner Howard. Any other further discussion? Roll, please.
Howard,
Yes.
Redlin,
Yes.
Myers, Showalter,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to C, the GAC contract renewal. Kent?
We contract with Goodland Activity Center for general recreation services, which includes maintenance of the ball fields during the seasons. As part of that contract, it does have in the term of the contract that it's may be renewed at the expressed approval of the city for one additional 2-year term, beginning January 1st of 2023 and extending until the 31st day of December 2024. We checked with Tess with the GAC, and she was just fine with us extending it for another 2 years at the amount stated within the contract. And that's the amount that we've budgeted. And staff has no other recommendations.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments regarding the GAC contract?
I think Tess does a good job providing a valuable service to the community.
Agreed.
So kudos to her. With that, I would move that we approve the extend contract for the GAC for 2 years.
I have a motion by Commissioner Showalter,
I'll second.
a second by Commissioner Redland. Any other further discussion? Roll, please.
Showalter,
Yes.
Myers, Howard,
Yes.
Redmond,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, and we will move on to D, the grave opening and closing contract renewal. Kent, one more time.
Included in your packet is a copy of the grave opening and closing contract. Again, this has, as far as the termination clause within the contract, it states upon the expiration of the original contract date, the agreement may be renewed at the express approval of the city for one additional 2-year term for 2023 and 2024. There's been no complications or any situations come up. I don't know if Joni's here, if there's been any situations that have come up that have been of concern or anything. No. And staff, I haven't received any other information contrary to that regarding the situation, so we'd like to continue if possible, and staff has no other suggestions regarding the contract.
Okay, anybody have any questions, concerns on this contract?
I move that we approve the grave opening and closing contract renewal with MLO Incorporated, Brian Fugelberg.
I have a motion by Commissioner Redland,
Second that.
a second by Commissioner Showalter. Any other further discussion? Roll, please.
Howard,
Yes.
Myers, Redmond,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, let's move on to discussion items, starting with A rate change regarding the solid waste contract. Kent?
Staff had received a request from our vendor that does our solid waste in town, stating they wanted to start the discussion regarding amendment, a rate change as part of the contract that they have with the city to provide solid waste services for both residential and for commercial customers in the city. And I think Chuck Redland is here to say a few words about this whole thing.
Yep, please come up.
Well, we're proposing a $3 increase on individual customers and commercial rate on the base contract. And I don't know why we need it. Fuel is cheap, tires are cheap. But, yeah, it's just something we have to do. I don't want to do it, but we gotta have a little more to operate with.
Yeah.
So that's our proposal on the base price only.
Operating expenses certainly have gone up in recent times. I think everybody's aware of that. I do know we have recently implemented a fuel adjustment
Yes.
for you as well to try to
And that
help cover the fuel costs,
a little
a
bit,
little
yeah.
bit, but. So basically, we're looking at, currently we do $15 a month and 25, right, for
Yes,
residential and commercial, and you're just wanting an additional $3
$3.
per one, so it'd be 18 for residential and then 28 for
Yes.
commercial is what you're asking for. I guess, and I don't know enough. Doesn't know enough to know what kind of an increase that would turn out to be annually. I don't know if we've.
Well,
Look
in the
into that at all.
residential, if it's $15 and you're adding $3, that's 20% more.
Yeah.
But the contract was originally agreed to at the end of 2016, actually started at the beginning of 2017. So there's been 6 years without any increase whatsoever. So, now that's 20% on the residential, it'd be a little bit less
On the commercial.
on the commercial. I can't do that. I think it's 12%, but someone else will probably correct my math, but, it's probably that amount.
I mean, I don't feel just, the environment that we're in these days and the expense of everything that has gone up. I don't feel like it's an unreasonable request, the amount that you're asking for here. I don't know what anybody else's thoughts are. If anybody has any.
I understand that wear and tear on equipment is hard.
It's just, yeah, everything is doubled or more. I mean, it's awful. These are the times we live in.
So is this is just under discussion items, so we don't have to make any kind of motion or anything tonight, but if it is something that we're all okay with, it's something that we could bring forward maybe next meeting for a more formalized action if you guys want.
That sounds good to me. Put it on the agenda for formal action next meeting.
Okay,
Thank
sounds good. Thank you.
The one additional thing, it does state in the contract that the contractor may request an adjustment to the unit charges once a year prior to January 1st, but it's more about the 60 days between whenever that adjustment is approved to when it's actually implemented is the point of the contract. So there shouldn't be an expectation that it'll be effective January 1st. It would be shortly thereafter, but we can work out the timing once the ordinance, is presented.
Yep.
But just want to make sure that Chuck realizes it.
You're okay with that? Yep. Okay, great, thank you. Let's move on to B, regarding city property and the direction of the farming of said property. Okay.
I was contacted by our people that we get involved with farming. And Mr. Cedarstrom is here. He can probably explain quicker and better than I can. Because we have a couple different parcels, and that's what the map that Josh has pulled up for you, that we ask him to farm, and then there's also some neighboring properties that have also been, that are moving in a different direction instead of straight farming. And that's causing the discussion to come about regarding this. And also with the location of the new Topside Manor, it's making other things difficult regarding the operations overall. So as that is background, Mr. Streeterstrom knows better than I do how to explain.
The reason this came up is originally from getting some feedback from the community. They don't like corn shucks and stuff blowing throughout their yards and stuff. So we talked to Tompkins, who own the stuff to the west of the sewage treatment plants, and then so all of that in there is going in, and yes, that there is going into CRP. The city is not allowed to go into CRP. We checked into that. The federal government will not let another government entity collect CRP payments, so that wasn't an option for them. And the same thing is also for Wheat Ridge Acres, which is that spot right there, that they can't go in. So I'm still going to be farming Wheat Ridge Acres, And I didn't know with the new topside coming in, if you guys would rather not have farming right there around it, just because it's tough. Doesn't really matter what crop you have to spray something on it at some point. So the chemical becomes tough to spray. And then if we just keep going like a wheat fallow wheat, which would probably be the best for it, if you go to a tillage operation, then you have dirt and dust blowing, and it's always sometimes hard to manage that exactly right. So I didn't know if the city would rather put some of that into like the buffalo or grass or something, and rather than me farming it. I mean, there's not enough acres for either one of us to go either way, but if you guys would prefer it to be farmed, I will do that and do my best to try not to affect the whole community. But if you would rather look into going to grass or something, I'm saying that's an option that I would be up for also. So there's a little strip right in there next to the ponds, and then it winds its way all the way around there and around topside, basically.
Hey, you got it up, that's good.
Impressive. Good job.
And
So, how many acres is that?
I forgot to look this afternoon. I believe it's like 21 or 22 acres.
Yeah. I think.
This one's shorter, Ken.
Yeah, there we go.
Here, he's
Yeah.
It comes, there's a little line right here, and so it's that little strip there, and then it comes up around there, and then topside is in there, and then it comes up there in that strip, and those two little units. So these two, and all of that is what we're farming.
Farming.
So it's
So
not a lot of acres, but
I do.
I just didn't, I guess the only thing I was doing was bringing up for discussion and something you guys to talk about.
Right.
If there's a better way for you guys, I don't want to affect the community with dirt or chemicals. It doesn't matter which way you do it, there can be issues. And the topside is what is becoming harder, especially if you go to tillage, because it's the dirt blowing. And as you know, northwest winds are way more typical. We don't get much southeast, and when we do, it's blocked by the city, so then the dirt just kind of hangs out there. I just don't want to fill their whole building full of dirt if I don't have to. And it was just a thought I had, but I will leave that up to you guys to think about and decide. I mean, I'm willing to farm it if that's what you guys would prefer for a while, but
It'll get tougher each year. I can almost guarantee it, as
Yeah.
far as the residents and the staff at Topside Manor and the complaints that will come.
And I've heard of the city at some point, people wanting to extend West Second Street out through to 27 at some point to give easier access into that part of the community. And that just splits it up again, makes it even, if that ever comes about, that is, it just makes it harder and harder. So that's my main.
So,
I think it's 21 or 22,
so I could,
think.
I did pull up the contract. Contract says 21 acres. Is
21.
what it
Okay,
is.
that's what I had in my brain, it was on 21. So it just gives you guys an option to think about and decide if there's a better way of going about it than what we're doing. And if there's something you'd like me to do different, don't be afraid to ask and say so.
Okay. All right. Hey, thanks, Greg. So I guess, that's kind of a tough little section there to try to determine what to do with, I think. Because you're right, it's getting complicated enough that farming it isn't the easiest thing, or maybe not be the best answer. But any other answers are going to, whether if we turn it to buffalo grass, that's, I don't know what it would turn into, but it would be a pretty expensive venture to get that established for the city. And not, can't turn it into CRP. So I'm not real sure, honestly, what to do with that. Beyond just farming it. I don't know off the top of my head or right now what the best answer would be. But
Well, and it's not something that we need an immediate decision on,
yeah.
but before making plans for the following year, or what we're gonna do with it, we'll need to come up with some direction for them.
To the point where it would really be fallow next summer anyway. They can go to wheat next fall, so. cell, so that's, I know there's been some complaints about the tall grass or weeds and whatever else grew in there. That is all due to the federal CRP contract. They made us plant a cover crop in there, and they won't let you spray it or mow it or touch it.
Yeah.
It will be planted grass, so most of that will get knocked down sometime this winter is when that'll get drilled to grass. So that when, but it'll probably be another year of, there'll be some weeds in it before the grass really takes over and starts coming on. But the federal government won't let us do anything to it per se.
Okay, well, we will definitely have discussions about it, and we will reach out with whatever kind of decision we decide. Sound good?
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Okay, let's move on to C.
Get all kinds of strange questions for you, don't we?
Yeah.
2022 budget amendment regarding the electric utility. Ken?
You know, and we've mentioned this a couple times in our updates, that the electric costs that we've received, the operational cost adjustment or the fuel cost adjustment is another way to say it, that we've received from our provider, from Sunflower through Prairieland to us, especially over the last half of the year, has been large amounts. And it's gotten to the point that we're going to be coming fairly close to our budgeted authority regarding the electric utility. Both with the fuel cost adjustment that has raised our power bills and that we've had to pass on, obviously, we pass it on to the customers in town. And also the cost for procuring equipment, which Dustin has mentioned to you a few different times this year of some extraordinary circumstances that have been 2-3 times the cost. I mean, like the hospital administrator mentioned earlier, as far as the inflation rate being 8%, it hasn't been just 8% for different items that the electric utility has purchased. It's been quite a bit more than that. So, because of that, our overall authority for our fund expenditures within the electric utility fund. Now, reminder just during budget that our different utilities basically operate as separate budgets within our overall city budget. And the electric utility, we have a total of $6.8 million. That's our authority, our budgeted authority for expenditures. We're currently as of the end of November, at $6.1 million. So we're about $717,380.38 to be exact. And we have 2 months of expenditures because some of the expenditures, they're incurred in December, but we actually end up paying them in January. So they fit within the fiscal year of 2022. So we actually have 2 months left. There's been, our expectation is that we'll probably end up, even on an extreme event, or normal operating costs will end up around, less than 700,000. But that's too close for comfort as far as staff goes, as far as our budgeted authority. If we have 717,000 left. So if there would be any additional extraordinary costs, whether it's through our power provider or through, we have certain type of wind events or other damages and we need to repair something right now, we don't want to be that close. So what staff is recommending that we go ahead and post a budget amendment hearing that'll allow us to, instead of have 6.8 million, add 200,000 to that, so we end up at 7 million as far as the authority for expenditures. Most of those expenditures, we've had the revenue to offset it. The revenue, the state is not concerned when you exceed revenue, so we don't have, we may do it anyway to list it, but it's not an absolute necessity to have an amendment to the budget. But on the expenditures, it looks far better if you go ahead with the budget amendment hearing and pass an amendment to the budget to say that you have authority moved up from 6.8 million to 7 million. That doesn't mean we will need to spend it or that we would spend it. It just allows the authority to be able to spend it if our bills come in such that we have to make those expenditures. So, but you need to do it within your calendar year. You can't have the amendment after December 31st. So that's why we would need to go ahead and get it posted in the newspaper, because you would have to have a public hearing, which would be at the next meeting before the end of December, and then have the public hearing and then have something to, as action to be taken by this commission to actually approve it. And even having the hearing, you guys don't have to approve it. You can say, no, we just need to live with it, be what we're at. Because staff, it's gonna be pretty close. It's gonna be a maybe, but for staff, that's too close. And try to write it out. It would be better if we went ahead with the budget amendment to have it. And then we contacted the auditor. I shouldn't say we, it's the royal we, it's the city clerk. Mary Vogt contacted the auditor and got a reply from Harold that said, based on discussions with Mary and the obvious price increases, it makes sense to adopt this budget amendment based on the facts and circumstances. So we did have an independent, it's not just staff that's saying it would be a good idea to go ahead with the budget amendment. It's the auditor who looks at our books and then gives an opinion on what we do. So based on staff looking at both Dustin and Mary have looked at it very seriously as what our expenditures will be. And I would say there's probably a better than 50-50 chance that we'll end up within our current budget authority amount. But it just allows no wiggle room whatsoever. And it's not expenditures, the expenditures that would occur are based on our power contract and also anything emergency-wise that we would need to do to finish up the year. So based on those type of things, that's the basis for the request for the budget amendment and to go ahead and get it posted. Hopefully that's not too confusing about why, and if you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to ask.
Anybody have any questions?
Don't have any questions. I appreciate you getting a hold of the auditor and getting that opinion. I think that helps with the decision for sure.
Do we want to give direction to go ahead and move forward with the posting for the budget hearing then? Or the amendment to the budget hearing?
I would, yes.
Sounds like we have to.
Well, we don't have to.
And
I think
kidding.
it seems like it's a reasonable thing to do just regarding the circumstances of the year. Like I said, the additional expenditures that have come in due to our power contract and then the additional cost just to run.
Where do we pull that 200,000 from?
What we're getting additional revenue
Okay.
based on because, we have a operational cost adjustment within our own code. So the power bills that we get, they're based on fuel cost adjustment. There's a formula that KMEA helped us develop about 20 years ago that includes that and says what the operational cost adjustment should be for our bills that we give to residential and commercial customers. So we are receiving the revenue. It's not any additional charges for that 200,000. It's revenue we've received throughout the year. We'll end up, revenue-wise, I think right at 7 million currently. And so it will be there. It's
If
just
revenue
having,
increases, you can increase your expense
yeah.
and vice versa.
Okay.
So it actually is already sitting there. It's really just saying the authority so that we can expend it.
I see. Thank you.
I think I would recommend that we go ahead and post a public hearing notice.
And we'll have, obviously, all kinds of numbers. The actual budget sheet and then the numbers that back up the budget sheet. Because you almost do the same type of work that the clerk does for the regular budget. You just do it for that one budget department. And so that's how the amendment is passed. Or, I mean, at least the information you have to have presented at the hearing. So we'll have that for you.
Okay, well, I believe the consensus is to go ahead and move forward.
Okay.
Any other discussion items?
No, sir.
Okay, well, let's move on to reports then, starting with our city manager, Kent.
Manager memo is included in your packet. The November month-end balances, the city clerk and I discussed a couple other departments as well, whether it would need to have, because we've had similar types, because of the cost of certain things, whether it fit, and all the rest of them, we didn't come to the point where it needed an amendment. So staff has done well making sure they address the things they need to and they fit within the right categories. So we did review it, and that's one of the reasons also that we include those month-end balances as we go along, although we give you the summary page, the one page, whereas Mary gives me 100 pages at a time.
I bet we can.
Also on the looking after the first year, if it would be, for the word's missing right now from what I'm going to say, but whether it be a good thing to set up a joint meeting between the city commission and the planning commission just to have some discussion cross-boundary regarding that in the first quarter of next year, if possible. If there would be any objections to that from the city commission.
Well, I, for one, think that'd be a great idea.
None from this end of the table.
That'd be great.
And the other thing is, and I intended to have it, copies of it at your places, but I'll probably send you a copy electronically as far as our strategic planning that we completed in the first quarter of this year, and the progress that has been made on the various items. I'll send that to you. Have it as where we finished off, and you can take a look at it and see on the different items what progress has been made and what progress we haven't made it to yet. Just as preparation for probably some follow-up work session to have January, February timeframe as well with the city commission. And probably look at your calendars about what would work best. We'll ask you for a specific date at next meeting, about some time to set that up. Just as kind of a follow-up session and a work session to set for the following year.
Sound good,
That is
everyone?
okay.
Yep. I mean, I feel like the sessions we did earlier this year did a lot of good throughout the entirety of the year. And I do feel like there was gains made in the things that we agreed upon that we wanted to see done. So it'll be good to see a synopsis of where things kind of land at the end of the year, and then, you know, first part of the year we can get back together and reassess and determine if we still want to keep moving in the same direction, or if anything has changed in our minds of where we think we want to go. So yeah, I think that's great too.
One other thing before I ask Dustin to come up front and give a little update on the electric department. We'll be submitting a grant application for Thriving Communities grant application in coordination with, it's just a letter of interest at this point. And we'll see where it goes, but it's in coordination with two partner agencies within the community, working with Sherman County Community Development. And because of the housing issue and transportation, it's basically through the Department of Transportation, but that more applies to transportation within town, which more deals with the partner agency of the college rather than with the county, although the county may be asked for some supporting of any grant application that eventually would get. But there's a lot of if, ands, or buts before it would get to that point. So, but that will be submitted on behalf. And then I asked Dustin if he'd be willing to give a update on his department, at the electric department, if he could.
Good evening.
Evening.
Just a update on the two different departments in the electric department. Electric production, we're currently down one guy. I think we did have somebody do some testing today, so hopefully we can get him in and start to get him trained. Went through some annual maintenance checklist on some of the units. We serviced some of the motors on unit 6 and 7, the cooler systems. We serviced the catalyst monitoring systems. Air compressor, we're going to have some expenditures there next year. It's pretty old, and they've been kind of piecing stuff together, so that's been budgeted, so hopefully we can get some work done on that. Worked on or did the quarterly fuel storage maintenance plan. They changed oil in Unit 8's governor. Monthly, there we generated units 7 and 8. We pulled back on 1 unit. We usually do 3 units a month, and because of gas prices and our budgetary constraints, we pulled back and only ran 2. So after the runs, of course, little things show up, and when you don't run as much, when you do run, then they show up even more. So they addressed some water leaks that they found during the maintenance generation on 7 and 8. Unit 6, they disassembled some gas valves on 2 heads, inspected, cleaned, reassembled, and adjusted and shimmed. Check timing on Unit 6. We had some issues with changing over from diesel to natural gas on Unit 8, and so they had to go back through and bleed valves on that to get it to change over. We come up, you can hear it when you're in the engine room, you can hear it kind of go high when it changes over to natural gas off of diesel, and go up and come down. So after about 30 minutes, they got that fixed. We did have KDHE, our plant inspected, and Chris has been working on compliance paperwork along with fuel storage. We had a load of fuel purchased and delivered to the plant. The inspector for KDHE said that it's probably the cleanest and easiest inspection that they've had. The plant itself, of course, you guys have been through the plant. And just the ease of getting all the documents. We've got them on computer and paper, so he said that by far it was the easiest plant he's done in northwest Kansas. Just miscellaneous items there at the plant. We do daily logging of all of the tie off the records off the tie. Josh has built a input sheet that's a lot easier. We used to have about 8 different reports that we'd have to put information into. We go in and put information into one input sheet, and it spreads it out through all the documents, so it's a lot easier. Of course, general facility maintenance and upkeep, safety inspections, yard work slowed down. About the only thing that would grow in the yard is weeds, even if you put weed blast down. I don't know where that ended up with the wind this year. Is your grass growing over there?
Some.
I've got Chris enlisted in the APPA leadership for the public power manager position. It's a year-long. It's through KMEA. KMEA is reimbursing some of the expenses, I think most of them. But there were 3 people in the state of Kansas selected to that, and we were lucky to get Chris in there. So.
Awesome.
Of course, just painting and some stuff. We helped the street crew pour some concrete up by the post office, and then they did some. I think Chris did a little welding for Neil's department, maybe out at the sewer plant. And they fabricated and installed new vent covers on all of the new breakers in the north sub. Moving on to the line crew, we rebuilt alleys between 4th and 6th Street, Grand and Kansas. And then we also rebuilt the primary line from 4th to 5th on Grand Street. Of course, we've worked on phase 2 of the Highway 24 lighting project. We got the last pole in. We got the last base in this morning, and they got the last pole up this afternoon. They've also worked on installing, we're going to install Christmas decorations out to the interstate on those steel poles. So they'll lead you right into downtown.
Nice.
We had to change out a pole in front of Orchlands because of it was leaning, and we had a transformer on it. They'd set a pole at 13th and Eustis for the college to start their diesel mechanic kind of addition. We're still waiting on transformers. It's one of those deals that when we order them, I think it was a 20 to 40 week lead time. And so I understand that when we talk about cost, you know, when we were looking at the budget for 2022 back in July of last year, we didn't see this coming. Transformers are 4 times what they used to be, and the lead time, you used to be able to get something in 4 weeks, and it's up. The stuff at the KOA is up to 60 weeks. So, I had to set a pole at 14th and Caldwell to reroute a electric service. Set a pole and build a transformer bank at 2nd and Harrison. Had to set a lift pole at 620 East 15th. I think the trash guys are having problems getting underneath that because the homeowner's lift pole was rotten and was leaning kind of in towards the alley. And every time we'd pull it up, it would just lean more. So with the knowledge of the homeowner, we went ahead and set that lift pole in there. We had to replace a pole at 222 Sycamore because of leaning. Some of these poles are just getting to that 30 and 40-year-old age, and I've had a pretty aggressive pole change-out program going since I took over the line crew, and it's just continuing on that. But some of the stuff with the costs, rising costs, it's kind of limited us this year. We've changed out as many poles as we could with what we could do, and still get
What was your cost on the last poll order that you had, Dustin? That was a little bit amazing, even just for that.
23,
Yeah, something.
$25,000 when it's usually about 11 or 12. Yeah, so I mean, usually I order 2 loads of poles, so we'll change out up to 70 poles a year. And this year it was 1 load. I mean, it pretty well took. You know, that my maintenance and construction budget is, I think, about $175,000 in there. So you take 1 load of poles, it kind of dings you, and you order 10 transformers, and you're pretty well maxed out. I mean, I know like the college, it's a build and repay, but it's still kind of just transformers for our stock. It is really kind of hit us hard, and I don't know when that's going to get any better. I've tried to hold off and tried to kind of just teetering right on that. You know, should I order more? But I don't know. I'm hoping it comes down, but I just don't know.
We're all hoping.
Yeah. Replace a pole for a homeowner, or it was actually in our line 1616 Wyoming. We built 2 different transformer banks for Sherman County Community Development and their concert series. One at 16th and College in Stever Park, and one in Gulick Park. Gulick Park required a little bit more work because it's underground. We were also able to put 120 volt service on there to light up the Christmas tree that's there now. So, of course, trimming trees, it's a line guy's favorite thing to do. And that's about a 2.5 to 3 month tree trimming process. And then Christmas lights right after that. So we did install some new lights per the owner's request at 1208 Main, new Christmas lights there. Steve West bought the building. So we did some trenching for the Parks Department, as Danny said, to help out with Phillips Park and their sprinkler system. We're currently, we did some work setting some posts for a fence project for, I guess it's maybe the city and Sherman County Community Development to enclose the transformer and some of the boxes out there by the Dango to kind of clean that up. And they have, I guess, a photo deal that they're going to put on there. But Kenton's crew was out there today. We did all the Vactroning and set all the posts, and he was out there pouring the stem wall that's going to go around that. So then we had Sunday we were called out. Truck driver hit a pole at 525 Cattle Trail, and we had 6 guys out for 4 hours there, which Frank Linden's place would have been shut down, and Irix shop there. As I said, we're going to install Christmas wreaths out on Highway 24. Guys have done their monthly substation checks, which happens every month. And then, of course, part of that is applying the pest deterrent to try to keep squirrels and birds out of the substations and removing any nests and stuff that are in the subs. So, then we're, Shauna, Mary, Kent, myself have been kind of on the solar ordinance, just some trying to clean it up and make it a little easier to know where everybody's at on that, and so some stuff don't slip through. I think we've had a couple of customers that have overbuilt their systems, so we want to make sure that we don't allow that. We do have 3 new solar customers, 6 total in town. And like I said, I'm patiently awaiting transformers for KOA and the college. KOA's was up to 60 weeks when I ordered it, so they could go through all of, hopefully not, they could go through all of next season's travel before we get the transformer in. So, but, and then a couple of webinars on grants for strengthening infrastructure. I sat in on one today. KMEA is involved in that, and I've also been to the last 3 months, every month have a KMEA executive board meeting that I attend. The last few have been virtual, so it's kind of nice. I don't have to travel quite across the states.
And what we may be looking at is, the grant application process is pointed towards the resiliency of the system. And for our system, that might be a candidate, doesn't mean it would get funded, but something to address the northeast part of town and how that is fed on our system at this point. And to be able to do something different or some additions to our system so that it is much more consistent than it is currently.
I think I informed you that I had an engineer come in to look at, see if possibility of building a substation over in that area. He informed me that he thinks we could save money by doing a voltage changeover to go to our higher voltage and just change out individual transformers up and down a few alleys to relieve some congestion in that part. So we're going to work on that. We're going to wait till the start of the year to order some transformers because we're looking at probably 20 to 30 transformers, and so I don't know how long that'll take. But yeah, that's on our radar, is to start at the northeast part, so it'd be Eustis to maybe Arcade, north of probably 6th Street till 2nd Street, up in that area, and start to peel some of that growth off, because when they built the loop back in the early to mid 80s, they didn't have that growth up there. They had a couple, like 4 houses up there, and that's where all of the growth in Gilliland is happening. So definitely that's one of the top issues that we're going to look at this next year is to start peeling alleys off and putting them on our 1380. So, but other than that, it's just trying to keep the lights on. We were pretty lucky the other day. We only had one city-owned pole that was damaged because of the wind, and I know the county had a pole out at Fairgrounds that was damaged, but that's on them. So I think we were pretty lucky, but
We're lucky, but we're also have been maintaining the system over years so that we have a stronger set of poles to begin with.
yeah, it's not a reactive department, so we're trying to be proactive. We're trying to do that before we have issues. It's a lot easier to change it out on our time than out there when it's 7 degrees and snow's flying and stuff.
That's what I'm curious with the work that was done with salary and benefits at the beginning of the year. Have you noticed a change in recruitment and retention within your department? Easier for you to find people?
So several years ago, when we started the lineman apprentice program, we had adjusted wages then because of what they were having to do, and with their testing, it's a 4-year program. And so they were getting raises every 6 months as long as they were passing their test, attending their trainings. They have to hour out on all of that stuff. So that program's kind of helped the line department out. I mean, we have a mix. We have an older group, so me, Terry, and Dennis. And then we have our younger guys, Luke and Chase and Tyler and Drew. And then the power plant, they're all kind of in that mid-30, early, maybe 40. Power plant's kind of a different deal because we don't run as much. The old guys, they used to run every day, come to work, and it was different. Sometimes it's a lot tougher in the production side of it to retain, just because those guys are not out there anymore. You're seeing a lot of power plants lose a lot of 30-year employees, and you can't replace them. So there is, I know with the power plant, there is a program the same as a lineman. It's a power plant operator program put on by KMU. I've asked Chris if any of the guys wanted to go through it. Haven't really had any or much kind of requests to go through it. So, but the guys we have at the plant, I think, are really quality guys. Like I said, we just offered a job, and I think he should be coming to work within a couple of weeks. I think December 12th was his start date, if all of his stuff is passed, I think. A lot of numbers running through my head, so I know some of them are like on the salary. I know there's some of them that haven't even seen a bump because of where they were. The lineman course got them up to probably where they need to be, maybe in this area. Knowing some of the information I know from KMEA, the city of Dighton put a crew there. They started at 35, moved up to 38, didn't get any applications. They hired a guy at $48 an hour. And they have one guy, an apprentice, and their apprentice makes more than like my league guys here. So it's tough. We're really lucky to have what we have, and those guys not to be looking at other positions. So, but we've grown that from people here in the community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got to have a tie. If we don't have a tie to the community, those guys are going to fly pretty quick. So.
Appreciate your input on that. I like that guys like Chris are taking those extra opportunities to further their education and get extra credentials and stuff like that. I think when you're offering that, that's good. And people say all the time they don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad bosses. So if we have good people, it's because we've got good supervisors like you making sure that they're taken care of. So thank you.
I think I was lucky to have those guys train me, like Ed Woolock and Charlie Vandal, and to kind of tell me what I needed to do and let me go do it. Now, I'm trying to do the same thing. I mean, I got kind of pushed into the power plant side of it because of the retirement of Rod, and Mike Abbey didn't want the job, so it just kind of kept falling down. So, yeah, it helped me out by Mike being there for a couple of years to help train. Of course, then we still had Roy, Wassermiller, and Bill, 25-plus year guys to help train the new guys coming in. So Chris is definitely going to be a benefit moving forward, along with power contract coming up in a few years. And so hopefully we're going to be in a lot better spot then than what we were, just seeing maybe one provider. I think we're going to get both people to the table and have both of their best contracts laid out to where we can have a choice. And a shorter contract. We don't want 15-year contracts.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's it, sir.
Anybody have any questions for Kent? Okay, let's move on to commissioner reports. We'll start down here on my left with Commissioner Rutland.
Yeah, so I had it brought to my attention about an issue with the park or the cemetery ordinance that we just passed, the sunrise to sunset. A citizen was out there around 7 o'clock in the morning and was told to leave, that the cemetery isn't open until 8 o'clock. So I don't know if there's just miscommunication that's happening or what that is, but that needs to be resolved because they were also threatened, or there was also another time where another person that was visiting was also threatened with arrest. And I understand like it is a trespass thing, but that should be like, in my mind, that needs to be the last resort. Is if they're not willing to leave. I guess that's where I'm at with it. We need to tell our police officers like what the new ordinance is, because it's in effect. Sunrise to sunset is no longer 8 to 5. So
And the communication occurred, and we took care of within, police officer was, we had, police chief was notified, and we took care, and then the complaint that came to us ended up coming secondhand or something like that. So, but we did get the communication taken care of today, so.
good. Thank you.
Because the new hours are posted, aren't they?
We're getting the
Not yet.
signs changed.
Signs aren't posted.
The signs haven't been changed as yet, though. And that's in process,
Process.
so.
Yep.
That was the main thing, but it should have been just a normal issue, and it'll be that way from now on, so.
But we are aware, and it has been addressed.
Yep.
So hopefully there will be
There we go.
less issues moving forward.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Anything else?
That's it for me.
Commissioner Howard?
Nothing at this time.
Commissioner Showalter? Okay, I also have nothing to add. So on that, I'm going to make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to KSA 75-4319B1 to discuss personnel matters for non-elected personnel. The open meeting will resume in the commission room in 10 minutes, starting at 6:27 p.m. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Howard. All in favor, say aye. Oh, wait. I also need the city commission, the city manager, and our attorney, Jake Clean, present, please. There. Motion and a second by Commissioner Howard. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll call this meeting back to order. Does anybody have anything else they wish to discuss tonight? Not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion by Commissioner Redlin,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Howard. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.